Welcome to another Platinum Great Worm episode of the It's a Mimic podcast, where we are sitting down with one of our top tier patron subscribers, Scott. Platinum Great Worm tier patrons are able to sit down and record an episode with us every so often, and so Scott decided that today, Megan and Miaca and I are going to join him in a conversation about DMPCs. But before we get into the episode, Scott, what should Miaca and Megan know about your tabletop role-playing game history and current campaign so they've got some context for the rest of the episode?
Yeah, so I've gone into depth about this before, so I'll give you the spark notes in case you have listened to the episodes with me before and you've heard this before. My start to role-playing games was quite the tumultuous time. I had not the best tables, so now I play literally with my boyfriend and his twin brother. The three of us all live together, so it's fairly easy for scheduling and everything. They can't tell me that, sorry, I had something come up when they wanted to ditch, because if they're home, I'm going to know. So our current campaign, it was, I believe, my first episode, we built circus performers for it. I'm playing a Pathfinder 2nd Edition adventure path, where it starts off with you're all circus performers, and then you go on to save the world because it's a level 1 to 20 campaign, and I can't imagine being a circus performer at level 20 is nearly as exciting as level 1. That's kind of the gist of it. I just have 2 players that I'm DMing for, so as a result, these adventure paths are designed for 4 people, so I have a DMPC to take it to 3.
That was so short and sweet. Normally on this podcast, when someone says, let me summarize it quickly, they will ramble for 25 minutes.
It's also the let me tell you about myself, and then they go on for like 45 minutes. Anyway,
yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah,
I tried.
I appreciate the brevity on that. It's something I have to learn to do.
Listen,
yes.
I've covered it in depth in my other episodes. If you want to know all the details, then you should listen. And if you don't know all the other details, that means you're not listening. So I won't out you for that, but...
Also, because Peps isn't here, I have to comment. Your boyfriend has a twin brother?
Yeah, they're
Dope.
identical twins. So I'm dating one of the 2 identical twins. I will tell you what, some days it's a trip living with twins.
Amazing. Like you alone are your own sitcom, and I'm about it. Like, I'm here for it.
Yes, actually. There was one moment early into dating my boyfriend that we were cuddling on a couch and the lights were dimmed low and I was a little sleepy. And I looked up at him and my brain said, now doesn't that just look like his brother? And I said, yes, they're twins, but I know I'm not cuddling with my boyfriend's brother. I am cuddling with my boyfriend. Thank you.
What a fucking trip. That's dope.
Yeah.
That alone needs to be a D&D character, like thruple conundrum. Like, I just because like, yeah.
Well, the worst part about them being identical twins, because I know Adam's talked a little bit with me about Dan's twins and how they're fairly different. No, these 2 are the same person. They will say that they're not. Do not let them lie to you. In the 27 years that they have been alive, the longest one period of time they have spent apart from each other is 1 month.
Wow.
They're the same human.
Cool. That's crazy.
Yeah, that's wild.
Cute. I love that.
So yeah, it's a fun time all the way around.
Amazing.
Would recommend. Honestly, would recommend.
As a polyamorous person, I'm very interested in this dynamic.
Oh, no. I'm only dating one of the twins. Yes, we're all a little gay, but...
I believe you. It's okay.
Andy's the least gay of us all.
Oh.
He's just pan, so that's fine.
Just.
Just.
That's okay. I always say that I'm just bisexual, so it's
his dating requirements are she or they.
Fair enough.
Okay.
Anyways, I'll stop derailing, I promise.
No, that's fine. Now you have context
After you
for my
said
table.
you don't go off on tangents.
Yeah.
I am the worst for it. I don't know what you asked for this.
I did. I do not regret anything. It's Adam that regrets things, not I.
100%. Yeah. Adam's like,
I have so many regrets. I want you to know. Anyway, let's move on with the episode. So, yeah, my comment about brevity is now tossed in the trash. All right, moving forward. DMPCs, because that's what we're here to talk about today. For those listening, the difference between a DMPC and an NPC is a DMPC is when a dungeon master, that's the DM stands for, builds a player character, that's what the PC stands for. and inserts them in the campaign as if they are also a player within the campaign. An NPC is a non-playable character that is there to any amount of degree, from set dressing in the background of a town to a major villain or an ally that's with the party for a long period of time, or a recurring face that shows up between levels 1 and 20. Whatever it is, NPCs can run the whole gamut, but a DMPC is think about an NPC, because the DM is still running them, with a character sheet that has all of the agency, can be involved in initiative just the same way that a player character can be. And so when you have a table or a party of player characters, the party includes the DMPC as an equal member of the party. And so the dungeon master gets to play both sides of the fence with this one. So why do people play DMPCs? There are lots of reasons. Some of them are well-intentioned. Some of them are selfish. The one issue that I want to point out right off the bat is that most people that I have noticed in my experience personally that have played DMPCs just wanted to play two. I've got this really cool character idea. It'd be so neat to have a character that does this. I really like the opportunity to be able to push this character in my storyline. So they will use a DMPC to be an equal member of the party, because they envision some sort of traumatic event that's going to happen. They don't want to punish the other players, so they're going to do it to the DMPC instead, right? And that's going to be their reasoning behind it. So there's a lot of self-serving purposes behind, in my experiences, but I know that that's not always true. Like, Scott, you say you play a DMPC, and I know why you do it, and it's not a self-serving reason. And we'll get into these reasons in a moment. So what are the major dangers of including a DMPC in your game? Well, the first one is that your dungeon master is going to start, the my precious character perspective on things, where suddenly their character is as important as, if not more important than, the other playable characters there. Right. And because you're a DM and you control the world, you can protect your precious character. And that's going to put the spotlight on them, or have them get away scot-free, or let them do the big cool thing that you want them to do. And so because you control both the character and the story and all of the conflict and the setting, you are able to craft around each character however you want. But when you're playing again with players, they've got the agency to fuck up your plans. When you're playing with the DMPC, you have the agency to not fuck up your plans and make your DMPC so fucking cool. But if you're going to do that, man, just write a fucking novel. So the next thing, the next danger about including a DMPC in your game is that you're diluting the spotlight. The players are there to be the main characters of the story, and you are pulling focus from it. That's one of the major concerns that I've had, because I've run a number of DMPCs over the last few years, and any time that the story started to become about them and it wasn't fueling the player characters agency and decision making, then I realized I had to pull that back, because you don't want your players to be sitting there thinking that they are spectators at their own D&D game. And then finally, the last thing with the DMPC that can be a really subtle danger is the idea of railroading a little bit too hard. Now, railroads are necessary sometimes, and there are instances where the plot becomes linear. You've got to clear up this dungeon. You have to make it to the last room of the dungeon. You go through the rooms in front of it, that kind of shit. But players have complete agency to do whatever they want, and that includes side quests and subplots and absolute random ass bullshit. And it's part of the fun of D&D. But if you have your DMPC there as well that are doing all of these side quests and subplots and things, you're diluting the spotlight. But on the flip side, if you are focused too hard on moving forward in the story, then you're going to be taking away the agency of the players and railroading them into the plot line. It's a difficult balance that you have to maintain in it. And I know that there are a lot of inexperienced dungeon masters who try to say, I want to be a player too, I'm going to do this as well. They add the DMPC in, and then they find that they are controlling the narrative, whether they mean to or not. So what are some tips for playing a DMPC so you're not doing this shit? First and foremost, remember who the main character is or are, and it's not you. You're the dungeon master. You've got a million other things to do, and running your player character is not necessarily why everyone else showed up here. They showed up to learn the story, not to see how cool your shit is. You are showing up to see how cool all their shit is. So remember, who are the main characters of the story? And if you think about the floating heads movie posters that we get for just about everything these days, where it's got 7 or 8 people staring off, that some of them are big and some of them are little in the background, your DMPC should not be on the fucking poster. Why is the DMPC necessary for this scenario? And I came up with kind of 5 general reasons why I like DMPCs. One of them, which Scott, this is what you dealt with, and this is what Miaca and I've dealt with DMPCs, is that there's just too few players, right? The adventures are designed, the CRs are designed for a party of 4 or 5, right? And we are sitting here with 1 or 2 players, and we can't fight goblins at level 8. Right, so we got to ramp up the story. When that means that we need more players at the table. If there's nobody else available, and DMPC can help out. When you have a party role that's missing, I did this for a while. We had 4 players at the table, so it was a decent balance. But no one ever thought about healing. Hard stop. Period. And I would give them health potions, and they would take all these healing potions and drink them at the dumbest times. Like, oh, okay, we're going to take a short rest. I'm going to drink. I now have the opportunity to drink my healing potion. Like, wait a minute.
I thought you said that I thought I was mentally prepared for you to say that they just took all those healing potions and sold them. For some reason, that just seems like what PCs would do.
Yeah, but I also have PCs that hoard their items as well that wouldn't do that. So just because they will never use them, Megan.
Yeah.
But what if I need this later?
I'm a player who hates like tracking inventory, so I notoriously build characters who are like non-materialistic. So anytime we get to loot or items or a plethora of items, I'm like, I don't want them. And then my character dies 900 times.
See, I made my DMPC the potion vending machine. So...
But that's what I mean. That's why they come in handy in terms of like every time my character dies, there's a DMPC somewhere that will revive her.
Yup.
That's literally why we keep Casey around at this point.
100%. She is my DMPC.
Like Casey herself is Megan's DMPC. It's not her character. Yeah.
Megan doesn't have plot armor. She has Casey.
Yeah. That's exactly it.
Casey is my plot armor. Like let's be real.
Speaking of plot armor, another reason why you would like a DMPC and a good reason to inject them in the scenario, and I mentioned this earlier, and grain of salt on this one, DMPCs can take a lot more punishment than a PC can. For example, Miaca and I are running a solo campaign again right now. We've been dipping in and out of the solo campaign and joining the campaign with everybody up in Vancouver. But her love interest slash sidekick was a DMPC for the longest time, and his name was Sakoth. Sakoth has been tortured. He has PTSD. He has been absolutely run ragged. He has ended up face down in the mud so many times from taking all the punishment. And Miaca's character has woken up more than once, where Sakoth is got 4 levels of exhaustion and 2 hit points left, and he's taking stat damage, and he is dragging her unconscious ass through the desert to the nearest place of safety. That happened, Miaca, more than once.
Well, and correct me if I'm wrong, Miaca tends to have an entire entourage, doesn't she?
She's our princess, yes.
I do.
our princess.
Yeah, Miaca is the only player I've ever met that had 2 DMPCs keeping her ass alive. So at the same time. The next thing is the old hilarious switcheroo. I've seen this done once, and I thought it was absolutely phenomenal. When I watched it happen, Dan and I tried to do it as well, and it kind of failed on us. So the old switcheroo is when you have a DMPC that you include in the party. I did this with Charlie's character, actually, now that I'm saying it out loud. Charlie's character from the last campaign, Draven. He before Charlie joined our campaign, we knew he was going to show up in 3 or 4 sessions. I started to introduce, because you guys got to a city, I started to introduce a bunch of smaller characters, and I would play them, but they had full character sheets, and I was running off of their stats and whatnot, and only to discover later that it was Charlie's character in disguise the whole time. And so I was just able to hand the character sheet over to him when he sat down at the table. Or the time that I saw that was used wonderfully was we had a DMPC that was a part of the party, and there was like 5 people in the party, and one of the characters built a PC to be, or sorry, one of the players built a PC to be killed in like the 3rd session, at which point they would take over the DMPC, right? And this was all planned out ahead of time. So when you're getting into those kind of meta decisions about, I've got this character, but it's a temporary situation, I'm going to hand it off, I find that that's a decent reason. It's a necessity for this specific scenario. I don't know why you can't just use an NPC for that, but I accept that a DMPC is probably appropriate as well. And another one, of course, is just serving the plot. I did this with my character Bargus, where I ran him as a DMPC because we all played Curse of Strahd together, and Terry DM'd, and we all finished Curse of Strahd at level 8. For anyone who has played Curse of Strahd, that's insane. You need to be level 12 or higher to finish it. So
sorry, I never made it out of Death House.
Miaca almost didn't make it out of Death House either.
No, I didn't. I was at my wit's end with that house. It was a lot.
Also,
But
it was
I did.
one of my favorite D&D moments of all time was Miaca running back to the front door to leave, to just to discover that it was locked and she couldn't. And then her character and Miaca both threw a fit for like 25 minutes about how this is not okay.
I just sat in the doorway. I'm like, I'm not going through this. And Adam was like, I'm going to need you to go in the house and figure out what to do.
You said, actually, no. And he said, well, do you want to play?
Right. Pretty much.
Miaca's response, hilariously at the time, was, I am not one of those girls. No. I sit down, I cross my arms, and I say no. So.
Yep, that was me.
Anyway.
And then you had to be one of those girls. Like, what other choice did you have?
Exactly. No one else is, right? I'm like, everyone else wants to be the hero. And I'm like, I do too, but I also want to live. So
you want to be a hero, not a martyr.
There you go.
So
why not both?
That's every character Megan plays. Yeah.
You have to get out of levels 1, 2, and 3 in order to be considered a martyr.
Fair enough. I accept.
So backing up for a moment, I played character Bargus in Curse of Strahd while Terry was DMing. We wrapped up at level 8, and then I took over DMing, but we kept all the same characters moving forward. So I had Bargus's character sheet, and when the players started to level, I would level Bargus with them so that we kind of knew what his spell slots were, and I needed him to be the healer. He was a life cleric. They were all morons. So like he had to stay there. So but I knew that his character was essentially, I played him as someone who was a follower of another player character there, Boar. And Boar was a barbarian who I had decided my backstory was prophesied to actually save my orphanage when it gets attacked sometime in the future. So because of all of this, I knew that Boar and the player playing Boar, they were supposed to be in the thick of battle. They wanted to have these blaze of glory moments, and he would always be under fire. So having a life cleric as a DMPC was phenomenal, especially because I needed Boar's character to live for a certain amount of time. When his character was killed early, and like he died underwater being hacked to pieces by an iron golem, and the rest of the party was like 3 rooms away. So they recovered his body after the fact, and they had a big funeral, and Bargus did an arcane spell to actually transfer his life essence into Boar so Boar's character could live, and then my DMPC died. That serves the fucking plot. And there was always going to be the plan. When Jamie bites off more than he can chew and Boar dies, I've got a backup plan sitting there in my DMPC. But the thing that I do for all of my DMPCs to make it so that they're not pulling the spotlight, to make sure that they are not becoming the main character, is I give them an absolute obvious flaw or limitation. Any DMPC that I've ever run has been, and Miaca's going to start checking off the list on these because she's run into this a few times, has been stupid, where they do not know the right way forward, but think they do. That's also overconfident, right? You cannot trust any of my DMPC's judgments. They will probably lead you in the wrong direction.
Man, I just feel like that's method acting there, right?
Thanks, man.
You're welcome.
And then if they're not stupid or overconfident, I make them cowardly or cautious so that they're not going to be the first one through the door. You'll put the players first, and then they're going to stay behind. Or I make them subservient. Miaca's playing a princess. How many times, Miaca, have you had one of the DMPCs drop to a knee and say, "Yes, my princess, whatever you wish," which is just power fantasy for Miaca. But on top of that, it allows us to have the DMPCs that are there not have the agency, right? I'm handing the agency back to the player. Every time that Miaca would say, "I don't know which way to go. Which way should we go?" I'm going to turn to them and ask, "What's the right way?" "I don't know, princess, whatever direction you would like to head." The other thing that I did with Sakoth, which was absolutely phenomenal, was I had him traumatized from the very fucking beginning, which means there would be some instances where you guys would get into trouble and he would shut down and not be able to continue to function. Meaning I had at any point the opportunity as a dungeon master to remove my DMPC from actually being effective in this moment. I've also had the, when Miaca's character has joined the rest of the party, this gives Sakoth the opportunity to go and hang out in a room at the inn or go to the tavern, or because he's a monk, he would also go to a monastery and pray just to work on self-care. Now, if you're going to traumatize your DMPC or any character ever, make sure that you're doing it respectfully. Remember, your session 0, and you don't know what other people have gone through in their lives. And for anybody that was following along in the on the Patreon as well, I've told stories about Kayam in there, who is Megan's character's brother, and Kayam is his real name. He went by Sakoth. That was his, because he was a Yuan-Ti slave that had been tortured and was slated for execution, and they kept calling him Sakoth. And so he had forgotten his name due to trauma. So that's the same character. That way I could start him off being pretty much a blank slate and reactive only to my player character. Another obvious flaw or limitation that I like to include is having them be childlike. And I tend to just have them be, a great example of this would have been Gladian, if Gladian had a character sheet and hung around with us for a while. Gladian was a warforged that was created literally yesterday, and was bred and built for war. He had one arm end in a shield, so no hand, just a shield, and the other arm end in a massive fuck off sword, no hand. But he just didn't understand things, and he would just be like, "Why do people eat? I don't understand. You guys keep putting things in your mouths and it's strange."
He was so cute. Like immediately became beloved.
But the thing about playing childlike DMPCs is, again, you're taking the agency away from the DMPC, and that has been the theme of all of these: stupid, overconfident, cowardly, cautious, subservient, traumatized, childlike. These are ways that I'm taking away the heroic aspect of a character, right? And then, of course, if you want to have another tactic for playing a DMPC, just manage the spotlight. Know the difference between an involved quest giver and a tractor beam character. Tractor beam character is the one that says, "This way, follow me," and drags the player characters from room to room to room into the next quest point. They should never be the one in front unless they are overconfident and running towards danger, or they are stupid and they accidentally kick the metal bucket down the well in the Mines of Moria, right? Like these are the moments where we allow them to have agency because it's the wrong thing to do. If I ever have a DMPC that says, "I know the right way," buckle the fuck up. We're in trouble. So what are some other options for DMPCs? First of all, you could just use an NPC. Like, I don't know why you need to build a character class. It doesn't matter if this NPC is a level 17 fighter that has this and this and this ability and blah, blah, blah. When I can just take a glance at what they can do and say, "Oh yeah, they're going to encourage you to move an extra 15 feet as a reaction on your turn," right? That's a battle master thing. I'm just going to give it to them. We are not bound by the same rules that players are as dungeon masters. So we can just give them whatever powers they might need in the moment and then let them sit in the background for the rest of it. NPCs are just fine. A lot of the times I like to stay consistent though. And one thing that Megan and Miaca have seen many, many times is I will take little like recipe cards or cue cards, and I will write up an entire set of stats for a character. It's not a full character sheet, and these characters do not level. They do not have any agency of their own. They're told what to do, but I give them kind of like diet sidekicks the players. I hand them out and say, hey, you know what? You guys run this character. Here are the options when you've got 12 NPCs following you around in your entourage. Here are the things that you guys have access to that your player characters probably don't. And I'll give a couple of healers, or I'll give a diplomat if we have only Dan playing the bard, and then we know we're fucked and we need someone else that can speak. Like, this is the opportunity to bring the skills set that we want into the forefront, but only for a limited period of time. Those NPCs and those cards will go away very quickly. So I consider them player run NPCs. I do this for pretty much everything except familiars. I kind of hoard familiars to myself for some reason, and I do not let my players control a familiar, just because I want them to be able to naturally react with them. It's Miaca's shaking her head with disgust, but most of my familiars come with a certain amount of fucking attitude by about the 4th session. And it is because every one of my players sees a familiar not as a companion, but as a tool to be sacrificed, because I can just summon them again later. Just because I can come back to life, Miaca and Dan, doesn't mean it doesn't fucking hurt every time you're like, hey, go scout out what's at the bottom of the fucking volcano. Like, come on now. So
I actually, no, I'm sorry, I have to step in because I did that once when I was playing Death House, and Starium, my familiar, had to die in order for me to get out. And so I like threw him. And so he died, and he was pissed at me for a long time after that. But if I didn't do that, my character and my other characters would have died. So,
well, did he understand that you weren't that girl, and of course you were gonna do that?
And Miaca, trust is the easiest thing to lose and the hardest thing to build, like
this is true. I was trying to survive.
I want you to know, what was Dan's character?
Zoltan.
Zoltan.
Yeah.
So Dan said that he wanted a familiar, and I said we already have too many players and too many sidekicks and too many NPCs, and you want to bring a familiar in as well. Fucking Zoltan. And I thought, you know what? Zoltan's just not going to like him, because in my head, the phrase that I kept thinking is familiarity breeds contempt. Familiar will just have contempt for Dan. That makes me very, very fucking happy. And that crow, or raven, I guess, had so much fucking attitude that Dan, as like consistently to this day, at like 2 years after that campaign ended, did Zoltan ever actually like me? Like, Zoltan.
So there's your method acting.
Yeah, I'm done with your shit, Daniel. So when it comes to familiars, you can have familiars, sidekicks, intelligent, and I don't mean sentient, but like smarter than average sidekicks, and pets and stuff as well, be able to fill in some of the blanks around the table where you don't need to include a DMPC. You don't have to do that. Another thing that you can have is someone that is going to train a player character. We had Roombury, who was an NPC that was following the party around and training Casey's character in the ways of being essentially an officer in the military. And this was the ability to serve the plot line for this and do some character development, but you essentially just stood back and did very, very little. I had a statted out sheet for him, but he was drunk and did not want to partake in most of the adventures, and so he just didn't. And the other option for DMPCs, if you're afraid of it being a spotlight that is going to get used and overshadow the rest of the party, is you can have the revolving door of NPCs. And I saw this done really, really effectively in 4th edition, where I had a pretty good dungeon master say, you know what? The DMPC, my character that's been traveling with you for all of levels 4 and 5, has completed his reason for questing, and he is going to retire and leave. And then 2 or 3 sessions later, we would bump into somebody else who would be our guide, or would need to be escorted or something, and would join the party as another DMPC. This keeps the plot moving, and there's no threat of my precious character shit happening, right? And also, if one of them dies, that's all right. We're going to move on to the next one, because that's the thing about dungeon masters, especially, fucking lifers like me. I have all these ideas for playable characters. I will never get to play them. And every time that I'm like, hey, does somebody else want to DM? They're like, yeah, okay, let me run L5 Art. That doesn't fucking help. Yeah, sure, let me run Call of Cthulhu. That doesn't fucking help. Or Dan's go-to method of, yeah, everybody build up characters. We're going to start in 3 weeks from now. And then he puts the entire campaign on hiatus for 2 fucking years. with vague promises that it will eventually come back. I'm not salty. Anyway. Anyway, having DMPCs allows me to explore these kind of concepts and have fun for myself for short periods of time and then move the fuck on, right? So I've got some questions to ask everybody because I've rambled for far too long. So let's roll initiative.
Now, I made a mistake, and what's propping my camera up is a stack of all of my dice in their little containers. So I'm going to get a little shaky on the camera here while I grab my dice.
Get aggressive with it. It's okay.
There you go. Now you can see the bottom of our outline of what we're doing.
Amazing. I love
With my
this.
14 Game Pass notifications. Why I have 14 Game Pass notifications, I couldn't tell you.
I do appreciate that Discord and Steam have places of honor on your toolbar there.
Oh, absolutely.
Firefox, that's a throwback.
I use Firefox. I'm weird about technology sometimes. It's so funny because my boyfriend makes fun of me because I'm like, meh, all these companies wanting all my data. And then of the three of us, I'm the only one with my voice and name publicly out on the internet.
Look, I'm the exact same way. My first and last name are attached to this podcast and stuff, and I am so paranoid about absolutely everything to do with technology and I had my identity stolen like earlier this year, right? They were in my fucking bank account and shit. Like and here I am just making myself a target.
One of my exes was a tech security guy, and like that's all he did was make sure that like he worked for I want to call it the gambling ring, but it's our version of casinos. I don't remember what the name of the company is, but he worked for them.
Sean worked for them for a while as well.
Yeah, but as their security. And I was like, I am the worst. I will click on whatever the fuck I want person. Like, if you want to take my identity, take it. Like, I just...
You don't understand. I could save 12% on this purchase.
100%.
All I need is my social insurance number.
Oh, great. I love that for me.
Look,
right.
What do they say in the tech industry? The people that hate technology the most are the people that create it, because we know the dangers. So anyways,
I dug out my D20.
There we go.
Perfect.
So what did everybody get? Let's roll initiative.
I got a 9.
11.
10.
Sorry, Miaca, you got a 10?
Yeah.
9, 10, 11. Okay, well, Scott, you're first. And I mean, I already know the answer to this. We've talked about it already. Have you ever used a DMPC as a DM?
Why, yes, I have. In fact, it's in my current campaign. It's going pretty all right. His name is Dr. Pinstripe. He's a pharmacist. He is, since I play in Pathfinder, he is a poppet, which means he is like a sentient toy. So he is a small-sized teddy bear wearing roller skates.
Why not? Oh my God.
And he's a pharmacist?
Yeah. So I did dual class, which is an optional rule where you are 2 classes at a time. Because again, we only have 3 of us for this campaign when it's designed around 4. So he's a barbarian alchemist. So he gets really angry and hits things really hard, and then is a potion vending machine. If I felt like it, I could have 33 potions every single day to hand out to my party. His job's to keep them alive.
Clearly. But I have to ask, okay, the teddy bear, the rage-fueled teddy bear on roller skates and the drugs, is this a chicken and the egg thing? Like, are we sure he's real? Did the drugs come first?
You know, the drugs did come before he was sentient. He was the pharmacist for the evil circus. If you need to know about the evil circus, listen to my episode with Adam of building circus NPCs. You know, gotta get the shout out in there.
Of course, yeah.
Most puppets are mindless, but some of them gain sentience later in life. He has been sentient for, what did I decide, 3 years? I don't know how to view it on this. Oh, no, 2 years. 2 years he has been sentient. So he has a little bit of that I don't understand life, that little childlike wonder that Adam had described earlier. He's just all about keeping his friends safe. So he gets mad when people want to hurt them. And then when they do get hurt, he has healing for years.
Look, fair enough. I mean, that was one of the main things that I said right off the bat was, you know, having a DMPC healer is not necessarily a bad idea. Miaca, I know this answer too because I don't think you've ever DM'd. Have you ever used a DMPC as a DM?
No, but I am no stranger to like trying to bring everyone along for the journey in like campaigns, especially if I'm like doing a solo campaign. And then Adam, you usually have to deal with like who I've brought along, and then you'll kind of make that call of like, well, they have to like go this way for now, or something
Yeah,
like
I have
that.
all sorts of crazy reasons to pull them away from your random fucking adventures.
Girl, it's not even people you bring along. I listen to Deep Dark of Radiance.
Yeah, sometimes it's just Miaca has many kinds of baggage. We'll just leave it at that.
Demonia.
And we're getting married
No
soon.
comment.
It's going to be a lot more.
Whole lot more.
Would you, Miaca, if you were running a campaign, would you be interested in running a DMPC at the same time, or would you just stick to NPCs and keep it simple?
Yes, but probably only one, and it would be like something helpful. Like Scott, I like how you have like a DM PC that always has potions on deck, like no matter what. And so like I would incorporate something like that just to make sure like the party, or even if I'm playing one-on-one, they have some type of resource.
Because no one wants to play the healer, so sometimes you just got to do it yourself.
Yeah.
I don't know. I feel like anyone who's a healer has a domination kink. I'm just gonna say that right now.
Yeah, but which way? They're like, hold still, let me put this in your mouth.
No,
Or
it's like, oh, you want healing? Beg.
Hold on, I'm taking notes.
Sorry, I had to channel my inner Peps there for a hot second. She's not here, so I had to.
No, Dr. Pinstripe does not make them beg. He is very freely giving of his healing potions. He just wants to see his friends alive and well.
Yeah, there you go.
I gotta warn you, the inner Peps doesn't stay inner very fucking long.
It's very true.
Megan, have you ever used a DMPC as a DM?
I did, and it was very specific to when we played our L5R campaign that I ran for you folks. The jumping point I did was off of 2 legacy characters that had already existed, so already had character sheets. And I wanted to play true to their characters in terms of like what their growth was over the time skip that I did for them. And the person who played one of the characters, I actually reached out to and said, give me your spell list. Like, what did he have? So I could actually play it true to who that character was. And they were a person that would show up and help out when needed, but definitely didn't like guide you in one direction or another. In fact, the way he communicated was very, again, open-ended. That sounds like a good idea. If that's what you would like to do, then go for it, kind of thing. That might be a good place to start. Like, it was very simplistic, but he was the kind of person that I had in my back pocket that, because of the spell list that he had, was very helpful. And then,
he pulled our asses out of the fire a couple times too.
Yeah, exactly. Right.
Was he the healer too?
He is a healer. Yeah, he's a water Shugenja, so he is. He was most of them played Bushi, so I was like, okay, we need some heals in here for sure. But then in D&D, it's usually if a player can't show up to a table, I'll either ask permission to run their character, and if not, then I'll throw in another DMPC for the day, kind of thing, that they just show up, they help out. They've got a more in-depth character sheet than you would a regular NPC, because they're going to be acting on turn and acting in action and so on and so forth. But that's usually the only time I've ever done it with D&D. L5R was the first time where it was excruciatingly intentional.
When you say excruciating, was it painful?
It was because, like, honestly, it was because you guys were playing in a new world you'd never been in before.
Yes.
And you needed a teacher, right?
Yeah.
Not only as like players, but as folks in a different part of the lands. Like, you needed someone that was going to help guide you in the proper direction, because you'd never been there before and you've never played this game before.
Yeah, we were all fish out of water, both players and characters, which was a good opportunity to explore a DMPC.
Yeah, exactly. Which is another good thing. Like, if you want to do a DMPC, that's a good time. If you have a table of brand new players, sometimes it's good to have that DMPC just floating around for like that. I don't know if that's a really good idea. You might want to do this. So just in case you're like, oh, you're going to fall into a trap and die, and that would be a terrible experience. It's your first time playing D&D. You might want to have somebody in there that kind of guides them through the world a little bit, right?
Well, and I'm more of the opinion of, I know that's a bad idea, but when you fall in that pit and die, it's my ass dragging you back from the dead, and hopefully you learned a lesson.
Yeah, we're going to play in hell and we're going to drag your soul out. Thanks. Great.
So Scott, are you ever a player anymore?
I convinced my boyfriend to start a game. We played that one last night.
Nice.
It's super fun. He's also running an adventure path, but this one's a lot more dialogue focused than combat focused. So it's a lot of fun.
That's what Miaca and I do too. Like it's mostly conversational and role playing as opposed to combat, right? So,
Yeah.
how often do you see a DMPC as a player?
So let's take it back to the wonderful, tumultuous time I had starting. The first DM that I had, who never actually read Curse of Strahd and would read it for the very first time as we were playing.
Jesus.
Like at the table was the first time that they had read the book as what we had to do. No, they ran a homebrew before Curse of Strahd, where no, it was Curse of Strahd that had the DMPC. Their homebrew didn't have the DMPC. They had a DMPC for Curse of Strahd. We never made it out of Death House because that campaign, the whole table ended up folding. They built an incredibly powerful DMPC who was like an Aasimar son, like the child of a deity, and it was a very strong character.
Yeah, that sounds like the Power Fantasy DM where you guys are showing up for their story, right?
Mm-hmm. That's very much what it was. This was after they had killed TPK'd us in their homebrew campaign, as we were like 4 or 5 level 2 or 3 player characters, and they threw 3 hellhounds at us.
Yeah, that'll do it.
It very much so did it. They were like, I don't understand what the problem is. You should have been able to do that, no problem.
As a dungeon master, when you start pulling out the monsters that are probably too challenging, but it's really cool, I want to play with this, then your focus is still on you and not on the players, right? So that I think that goes hand in hand with someone who would be a bad DMPC. Miaca, how often do you see DMPCs as a player?
Very often. Not like when I'm not in Vancouver with you all, I'm always like, there's always NPCs and DM PCs around. My main DM PC is with where is he again, Adam?
He's currently dicking around with Dan and Dave.
Yeah, right. So
that is a sentence I didn't think I'd hear.
Well, sometimes when you're out in the wilderness for a long period of time. Anyway, no, yeah, this is the first time I think that you've been playing without a DMPC. The only ally with you is Tressum, right? You're familiar.
Yeah, just my familiar. So yeah, I've been doing all right, I think.
Actually, that's not true. The other time that you had that you played without a DMPC was your very first session, where you were walking down a forest road on your way to the tavern where you were going to meet your DMPC, and you ran across, and I am not kidding, a giant toad, and the giant toad fucked you up. You were unconscious and bleeding out until someone else came and saved the fucking day. It was the very first combat of the very first session, and Miaca's had a thing against toads since.
Girl, I get it. Last night, a giant toad tried to swallow me whole.
What is it about giant toads, hey?
Wow.
Now, to be fair, I was in its giant neck thing, and I shot my little gauntlet crossbow from inside and got a critical hit and killed it. So that was pretty badass for me to escape, but it tried to swallow me whole.
Live to tell the tale.
I did.
No, this one just hit Miaca in the head with the long tongue attack, and I did max damage on that roll, and that was the end of that. Miaca went down. One hit, it was done. So that was fun.
Great introduction to the game, babe.
Yeah. However, you ended up with a DMPC almost fucking immediately after that, right? So
yeah.
Who actually is still running around as an NPC now, playing as your current character's father. So that's
right.
There's been a bit of a journey there. Megan, how often do you see DMPCs as a player?
All the fucking time. Not only in Adam's campaigns, but also most recently, my good friend Cole is running a survival campaign right now in D&D in terms of we're traversing through a mountain right now. And so we're dealing with weather, we're dealing with avalanches, we're dealing with all kinds of shit. And so he gave us DMPCs that are specifically following our group around. They have backstories that are tied to our backstories. but they are very much a part of the militia and they're taking charge. And so one of the brilliant things that Cole did in terms of trying to force us to start taking ownership of what our characters were doing instead of the DMPCs making the decisions was in the survivalist checks, he started killing them off so that our characters were forced to start taking charge and start taking direction, because he's just like, yes, I built them to help you because you don't have any healing and you're not skilled in the area, you've never traveled here, so you have someone helping you with the navigation, but it's time you guys took over. And so all of the challenges became extra challenging. They all kept trying to save us, and they would die trying to save us, kind of thing. So like he did it naturally, but like you could tell that he was like, I'm gonna force you guys to start becoming the leaders of your own damn story because you're relying too much on them. So that's a good visual of like a DM that noticed the issue and did something about it, right? So
yeah, that's something that I guess we didn't talk about. I retire my DMPCs pretty quickly. I can bring them out of retirement, but I mean, Selenar, the UNT DMPC that followed Miaca around for a bit, is now just an NPC hanging out in the capital city that you guys just don't deal with anymore. You just have completely given up on dealing with her, and that's fine. A lot of my DMPCs are only DMPCs for a very short period of time. I usually don't kill them because I think that it's easier to retire them and then keep them in the background to pull out later. But killing them off is effective, and it also raises the stakes of the world in a big way. And that's a really cool way, especially you say survival campaign. Are you using like gritty realism rules, or is it just
yep.
brutal? Yeah.
Long rests are 1 week. And we do con saves every day for levels of exhaustion.
How's that treating you?
Terribly. And I built a bard.
Oh no. Did you are you having fun with it, or is it too punishing?
Yes and no. So like Cole's been doing a really good job about checking in to see if like how like he wants it to be gritty, and like to the point where like we all built like secondary characters in terms of like if our characters die. So we came into this game with the understanding that they might die. So one of the big things that's hard to balance when you're doing a survivalist campaign where it is very punishing is having your players devoted enough to your character's backstory to care if they die.
Yeah.
And so that's what he spent a couple episodes building, is that he built these DMPCs that were parts of our backstory. So we became dedicated to them, and all those deeper conversations would start happening at campfires at night. And then he started killing them off. So then now you're devoted to survival because your friends have now died and it's your job to like live on for them, kind of thing. So he was able to like bring out some of those emotions enough that we cared enough that they would die and we would want to survive and not just succumb to, like, I was trapped in an avalanche and I almost died. And then like there was a part of me that was like, oh, I've got another character in the background, who cares? And then I was like, wait a minute, no, I do give a shit. Like, I do care if she survives, right? So anyways, it's a hard balance to have as a DM, but I do feel like DMPCs and putting them in there to like bring out someone's backstory, especially if you have a player table of like 3 or 4 people and they're not really talking to each other about their backstories, to bring out that like care about their character. Having a DMPC do that for you is something that's very helpful and useful too. So
moving on to Scott again. Who is your favorite DMPC and why?
Well, I'm sure this would come to a real surprise. My favorite DMPC is Dr. Pinstripe.
Is he the only one you've ever used?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, he's the only one I have used. I ran a little 1-shot, which, as they do, it was a 2-shot. It was one of the free RPG Day adventures that Paizo released. I did not do a DMPC for that one. So then when we started our first level 1 to 20 campaign, which is where we are now, we're literally next session, we will beat the dungeon and be level 8. So we're trucking along with it. But yeah, this is the first real long-term campaign I've done, and the first time I really integrated a DMPC into my games.
Miaca, who's been your favorite DMPC and why?
I have a soft spot for Steubens. Probably mainly because it was my first D&D campaign. But yeah, like he was my partner in crime. You could do no wrong, and it was a lot of fun.
Yeah, Steubens is probably my favorite in the long run as well, because he was the one that dragged your ass to safety after the giant frog or the giant toad, right? And he was there to guide you, and to guide your tiefling through kind of what it is to be an adventurer. And as shit popped off, he was shoulder to shoulder with you the entire time. And to the point, he started as an NPC, and I realized how involved and invested that he was, and how invested you were becoming in him. So I gave him a full statted out character sheet, and then in true Miaca fashion, she needed to add romance to it as well. And so your character ended up falling in love with him, and your tiefling fell in love with him and discovered that he was a secret ASMR as well. And so it was like the forbidden love. There was a lot going on in that campaign.
Yeah.
And that forbidden love has created two daughters who are a tiefling and an ASMR, and that's you and Casey in our current campaign. So like we gotten a lot of mileage out of Stubbins, and he is high powered enough now that he has come in. He's General Stubbins now, and he's come in and rescued the main party a couple of times in this campaign when shit's popped off. So I do like having super powered DMPCs around as well to just pop in, wreck shit, and fuck off again, right? So Megan, do you have a favorite DMPC you've ever seen?
I would say like in D&D in our campaign, I would say that Kayem Sakoth is one of my favorite ones, and only because the whole backstory was Roman played Kayem in a Strahd campaign, and then I built his sister and utilized that storyline and used it and changed a little bit to fit our campaign, and then played his sister. And he is technically a paladin.
Yeah.
And then when Adam reintroduced Kayem, and he basically saved her, like my character, like brought her back from the dead kind of thing. And she met him for the first time again. He was not a paladin. He was a monk, and completely different because, again, as Adam described, he lost his history, lost his background, forgot his name, all of these things. So now my character's like, you're my brother, but I don't know who you are. And now he's following us around, and like, again, Miaca and him are in a thing, and it's just all kinds of nonsense. And then like, again, as I feel like he got a lot of mileage out of So thanks very much, Roman, for the creation of Kayem. But the creative liberties that you took with his character, like, are phenomenal, and it worked out really well.
I also like about once a year I check in with Rowan and be like, so your guy's doing this now, right? And Rowan is always so interested in it, but I could tell he's holding back, right? Because he's got opinions about what this character should be doing. And I got to remind him, same body, same name, new personality from the trauma and new skill set. But we've started to see him step up to be a little bit more lawful good, and I feel like Paladin may be in his future again as he is regaining kind of who he was. I'm glad that you guys like the current ones that we've been playing with, and not any of the older ones. Scott, has there been an in-game scenario where the DMPC has overshadowed a player's agency? And if so, what happened?
I have, fortunately, I don't think the closest thing I've run into with my DMPCs is one of his classes is Barbarian, and we play with crit cards, and I rolled a critical hit and drew my card, and it said triple damage. So I casually did 78 damage to this NPC on an attack of opportunity.
As one does, yes.
As a barbarian does, you know. That kind of felt like I was the main hero of the fight, which kind of felt bad for me, although don't let them know that I said this. They build their characters for the teehees. Pathfinder, you kind of need to have something going for your character that is very reliable to take down threats. Teehees is not always reliable to take down threats. So I kind of needed to hit like a freight train full of bricks to survive another day. Other than that is my wonderful table that folded with the Child of a God DMPC that was a cleric in Death House that literally just walked all over every undead shadow, everything.
Yeah, there's a big difference though between the like, hey, I just happen to roll really well and I'm having a spotlight moment versus the everybody stand back and watch how fucking cool I am. Right.
For me to roll a crit hit and draw triple damage on a crit card, like that very easily could not have happened.
Yeah. There's a DMPC that I ran earlier in this campaign named Tobold. And he was Megan's muted, but she's very happy.
I was gonna talk about Tobold.
Is Tobold a kobold?
No, Tobold is like the last remaining guard, like royal guard from her world, and the world has since ended. And so he's like devoted himself to Megan's character. He's dead now eaten by a false hydra, but there were definitely like the stirrings of a romantic interest in there, as well as the fact that he was like, I realized as well, you guys had a bunch of like magical range shit, but nobody carried a bow at that point in the campaign, and it seemed fucking wrong. So he was an archer as well. And anytime that he would get a critical hit or something, I would roll it, and of course I don't do all of the extra shit. I just do damage times 2, damage dice times 2 plus the modifier when it comes to anybody except the player characters. So he doesn't get our crit tables or anything else. But when he would do a mass amount of damage, or he would get a final kill or something like that, the party would cheer for him. The players were like, "Oh, thank God he did it. That was great. We can move on with the storyline now." Because normally, if he was that involved, shit was hitting the fan of some sort. Like when you guys were temporarily in Barovia and you made it to the windmill and all of the zombies started to rise out of the mass grave out behind the windmill. I took a few creative liberties in Barovia, as one does, and Tobolt stand there just picking off zombies as everyone else is like trying to run up to the windmill and barricade. He's like, nope, fuck you, and then fuck you, and you also get fucked. And like everyone was very, very happy that he was there until you barricaded yourselves in, and it was a bit of a shit show from there. But I fucking loved Tobolt so much. When he died fighting the False Hydra, again, patrons, if you haven't listened to the False Hydra episodes, they're fucking wild. When he died fighting the False Hydra, as much as I really felt it for Casey and Dan and Dave, or sorry, not Dan. Dan killed Dave's character. As much as I felt it for them and Charlie's character as well, I really felt it for Tobolt because he kind of died and nobody really paid attention to it because we lost 3 player characters at the same time, right? And so I fucking I miss Tobolt. He's got a place in my cabinet because we have a Hall of Fame where we keep all of our old dead player character minis, and so he has a place of honor up there. So Miaca, has there been an in-game scenario where the DMPCs overshadowed a player's agency, and if so, what happened?
I've been really thinking about this one, and I don't think so. I guess you do a really good job of letting me lead, and you basically follow with all the DMPCs. So yeah, for this one, I've never experienced that.
Aren't you just lucky to have a good DM?
I am.
There are definitely times where one of your DMPCs has stepped in and said to you as a new player, I don't think that's a good idea. And in those moments, I would say that they overshadowed your agency, where you were making you can't look, there's no right or wrong way to play D&D. But there are some times where it's like the characters or the player's about to make a decision because they don't have enough information, or they don't know kind of what's expected of this scenario. They're not quite sure what the stakes are. And so there have been times where you've made one decision and then your DMPC has come over and said, hey, you should make another decision. That's a poor decision. That is definitely overshadowing your agency, but it was also the purpose of DMPC, right? Like to be able to be a bit of a guide, especially because you were a new player at the time.
Yeah, that's fair.
Megan, what about you? Have you ever been overshadowed or seen a DMPC overshadow?
Constantly, however, in a good way. So this is I was going to talk about Tobolt because he was a player character, like a DMPC that you built for my character who outshadowed her on a regular basis. And it was because my character is driven specifically by being stronger and better than everybody else around her. So it's almost like we needed a DMPC that was better than her so that she would continue to try and do better things. So I felt Tobolt was a good representation of the strength and actually going into battle and doing things like that. Kayam was more of the make good decisions, be a good person, so on and so forth. She uses DMPCs to teach her lessons, right? And I found that in a couple of different campaigns, I tend to play characters that are wanting to be the best, and having a DMPC that one-ups you is sometimes what that motivation is for, right? Or to be a fridge character for your character. That's happened a lot. I tried to count in my head how many dead loves Kaya has, and I think it's 3.
Can you list them? Which 3 she had?
Sorry, no, I'm thinking, so Tobolt was 1, and then technically the vampire she's kind of into, but that's fine. But now I'm also thinking about Cora, who had what's his name? Top Hat, Terry's character.
Solomon Duke. Yeah.
Solomon Duke.
Yeah,
So-
you've had your heart broken a few times in D&D.
Yeah, in all of your campaigns, but it's usually utilized and move my character forward, right? So those moments definitely outshadow my character, but it's used in a good way. So that's something to utilize as a DM if you want to. You can be okay with overshadowing, but make sure you know what kind of player you're playing with, right?
The other thing I will say about Told overshadowing your character was he never boasted about it, and he always celebrated it when you did something amazing, right?
And all my character did was yell at him. Like I remember, like the heartbreak moment was in that battle with where he died. The last thing Kaya said to him was, "You're fucking up. Get your shit together," because he let Casey's character get hit because he was protecting my character. And I said, "Stop protecting me. You're doing it wrong. Figure it out." And then he got eaten and died. And that was the last thing my character said to him before he died.
Yeah, his whole thing was supporting you and protecting you. And when you needed him to support and protect Casey, it was the wrong tactical move, and that killed him. But he did what you asked.
Yep.
We play with heartbreak in our campaigns.
How could you do this to this man? He wanted nothing but the best for you, and you killed him.
Oh, she's traumatized. She's decided never to love again until Adam's like, "Oh, but what about that person that you met in your childhood that you might still love?" And then I'm like, "You son of a bitch."
Except being loved by your character is a curse of death.
It's true. It's true. Actually, yeah, it's a known thing also in my L5R campaigns. Anyone who plays my character, like for player characters, anyone who's played my character's partner has died. The only one that survived was my friend Cole's character, which is Tomo and Takara, which were the two characters that ran my L5R campaign. They were the only couple that survived. Every other time, every love she's had has died.
And did they get a happily ever after, Megan?
Tomo and Takara?
Yeah.
In the end, technically, they are technically cursed. So their whole shtick is that Tomo died fighting and got pulled into like the underrealm while fighting the big bad in our campaign. And then my character went to hell to bring him back. But to get him out, they made an agreement basically saying that our job for the rest of our lives is to find big bads, cage them, and bring them into the afterlife. And that's what their job is now for the two of them, which is why you guys met them and that's what they were helping you do. But because of this, they have 5 children who they don't really get to see because they basically had kids and then send them to other clans to be raised because their job was too dangerous to raise children, which is why in our campaign, her first kid died. And that's what taught them that if they have kids, they will do it so they can have kids because they love them. But their story is tragic. They do have a very happy ending death. Welcome to Samurai Sadness Simulator.
I'm going to cross L5R off on my list of games to play. I don't know if I can handle Samurai Sadness Simulator.
Our version is very sad.
Look, the thing that Megan pitched it as a sadness simulator before we played it. And I'd been hearing the reputation of L5R for a couple of years at that point before we ever played it. And then we sat down and actually ran it, and Megan ran it a little bit heartbreaking, and I fucking leaned into that for my character. I decided before we ever played, I'm going to torture this motherfucker. I'm going to make all of the right decisions, and I hope it's always the wrong decision to do it that way. And I was so excited about doing it. And then we did the L5R series with the 2 seasons of it, and I realized that it's not actually built to be sad. That's just Megan and Roman. That's all they want to fucking do is hurt people with these fake characters. So like you can play perfectly honorable, happy, wonderful campaigns, or you can play with fucking Megan, right? Who also added just about the worst heartbreak moment in our Call of Cthulhu, Deep Dark Irradiance. That was the heartbreak moment there as well. I mean, completely out of your control, but you were at the center of it. And then you are a fallen death knight, was how we ended the last campaign, who watched her god get raffle stomped. And then now it's just heartbreak and lost love. And Megan, do we need an intervention?
No, this is how I like to live my life. Makes
I
me
was going to say, I can go grab a counselor. I live with one.
No,
I
it's
had
okay.
a good time. I had a good time with L5R.
Thanks, Miaca.
I don't think anything tragic happened to me. I was just like, yay.
I was killed by a brick because Dan needed a body count.
Yeah. Good
Don't
times.
laugh at that. Shut up, Miaca. Fuck. All right.
Anyways.
Stop laughing. Okay. What's what's the best instance, Scott, of a DMPC intervening in a game that you've played?
Well, I think the theme is I have two sets of experience with DMPCs, one when I was the player and now with me being the DM. So the best instance of a DMPC intervening is probably just me being the potion vending machine. I mean,
No, but was there like a specific instance in a game that you could point to be like, this was the time the DMPC came in clutch?
I mean, it kind of happened with Curse of Strahd, where the DMPC, because there's the one room with all the shadows in it, right? Which is not fun. We'll just put it that way.
Nope.
Yes, the DMPC literally just completely and entirely took over. But they did it, in my opinion, I think a little too early. Instead of bailing us out as things look bleak, it was just oh, I'm the DM. I know that this is coming, so my PC is just going to stop it before anything bad happens. So I kind of wish that it would have been let the pot simmer a little, let things get looking a little interesting, and then come in and save the day. That's my take.
No, fair enough. Miaca, has there been a single instance in your head, in your mind, where a DMPC intervening in one of your games has been like a really good experience?
Oh my gosh, yes. All right, so I was playing Curse of Strahd, and this was probably the game we played together, Adam, before I rejoined the group of, so how'd it go? I was yelling at Strahd. He was standing like a few feet down the road.
And you were like level 4 at this too, like, for fuck's sakes.
Yeah, because I've just had about enough of his shit, and I've been walking forever, and so I was just like going off, and I'm like, all right, if this is where I die, this is where I die. And so Strahd like appeared in front of me, and I think I failed like a wisdom save, of course, and it was Sakoth, aka Kayam. He took he took his sword and just smacked Strahd like upside the head. And everyone just froze for a minute, and I'm like, did that just happen? And even like Strahd was like, I'm gonna kill you now. And so like Sakoth was like, run! And so we just like took off down the road. And like Strahd let us like get away. He could have like killed us all like in that instance. But I thought that was like the funniest thing because I wasn't expecting it for that to happen.
It was such an insult because it was the broadside of the sword too. Like, it was not meant to do any sort of lasting damage. It was just, mind your manners in front of the princess, you bitch.
Yeah.
And like the mental picture I had with that is how everyone plays Strahd as I believe it's written. I never made it out of Death House, so sorry. He hit him upside the head. The only thing I can think of is bonk, go to horny jail.
Fair enough.
That's Pepperina's version.
Yeah.
Well, yes.
So Megan, best instance of a DMPC intervening in a game that you've played?
That I've played in as a player.
You choose.
I was gonna say, as a DM, one thing that I did with my DMPC when we did the L5R game was that yes, he was well known that he could teleport people places, but instead of like me being the decider and when he would do that and jump in, I actually gave you a sheet that had a spell and a rune on it and said, if you needed him, you can call on him, right? Like, so I took the power out of my hands and put it in yours, that if you wanted to use him as a tool, you're more than welcome to, kind of thing, right? And it did come in clutch in the end. So, but yeah, otherwise I would say that the biggest intervention was Kayam coming in and saving Kaya's life by bringing her back to life while we were in Barovia. It was Barovia we were in, weren't we?
Yeah, you had died. I think it was in that zombie fight, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And then there were a bunch of standing stones that were around. Again, I homebrewed a lot of shit. A bunch of like standing monoliths around the hill where the windmill was.
Yeah.
And those stones could actually move like in a circular pattern and like rotate and encircle around the windmill, because the old priests of Osibis, the cult there, had inscribed them with a bunch of different runes and stories and whatnot. And we could only bring back someone who had died if a member of their family was the one to actually cast the ritual. And everyone sat there and went, well, she doesn't have a member of the family. And then one of the NPCs turned to Sakoth at that point and said, yes, we do. you do it. And that's when all of the pieces fell into place for everyone, and they realized, oh, they're siblings. This was a long lost brother that Megan's character was actually trying to find and kill up until this moment.
Yeah.
So, and it changed everything, which was a lot of fun.
Yeah, that was really cool. I enjoyed that moment. I cried a little bit. I messaged Roman about it. It was a good day.
Scott, is there a technique that another DM has used for DMPC that really made an impact on you, either positive or negative?
So I have, of course, the first experience I had, which felt very agency removing and overshadowing, which is something that I vowed to never do. But honestly, getting to hear a lot about how you run your DMPCs is kind of giving me the tips and tricks on how I should be doing it. And I'm liking taking some of these pointers and seeing what I can roll with.
Just heartbreak. That's the thing that we're learning today.
Sure, yeah, I'm down with it.
Are you going to have, it was Mr. Pinstripes? Are you going to have him like slowly start losing his stuffing as he gets unraveled in front of your player characters?
I don't know. I don't really have any plans for Dr. Pinstripe other than to keep them alive. It feels weird calling him that because my boyfriend's brother has nicknamed him Pinto Bean. So I'm just used to calling him Pinto.
Amazing.
Yeah, because why call them by their actual name when you could just give them a nickname, right?
Sounds like our table in a nutshell. Yeah.
It sounds like every table when it comes to any NPC or DMPC, they all get fucking nicknames.
My favorite is when you read a name and then they go to write it down in their notes and you're like, would you like me to spell it for you? And they say, no, I'm just going to wing it. And that's going to be their name to me for the rest of eternity.
I stopped asking, do you want me to spell it? I just say what their name is and start spelling and watch Charlie and Casey and Dan madly scramble to write it down. And without fail, Charlie and Dan will write it down improperly anyway, even when I slow down and go one letter at a time.
I love it. I love it.
Yeah. Meanwhile,
No,
Megan's just laced her fingers behind her head. She's sitting back, just like legs up on the table, being like, fucking, you guys take your notes. I don't need to do this shit.
My character is a one-track mind, okay?
Fair enough. No, I don't have any big plans for Pinto. He's just there too. The circus is all he knows. That's it. So he's very devout to the circus, and he's going to keep the leaders of the circus alive and help them with whatever quest help needs that they need. Although I do make the joke, whenever someone's at half health, oh, they're bloodied, we just say he's starting to lose his stuffing.
Oh, Miaca, is there a technique that you've seen in other DMs, so I guess me, that I've used for a DMPC that really made an impact on you, both positive or negative?
You brought it up a bit earlier, and like I kind of forgot you do this, but like when I'm like, okay, I'm going this way, and then you're like, all right, wait, this is like a bad idea or whatever. It kind of like makes me pause and kind of rethink of a plan, and it's not so much as you like guiding me into like, well, I guess you are kind of guiding me into the direction you want me to go, but like I never just what's the word? I never just like lean on that, but I do appreciate maybe that's not the way I want to handle something, and so I'll like rethink of a new plan and then just do something incredibly different, and then like after we're done playing, you're like, all right, what did you, or I'll ask you like, what did you think? And you're like, I wasn't expecting you to go that way, or I wasn't expecting for that to happen. So, whatever. So I just really appreciate the guidance, I think. That's provided.
There's a difference between professional courtesy and railroading. And I think that's a good example of professional courtesy, that your group would know a little something about the area they're in, right?
Yeah, that's one thing to point out with the DMPC. That's a really good point, actually, Miaca. I'm just going to like summarize it a little bit. It's not telling you which way I want you to go. It's telling you which ways are probably the wrong ways and letting you still figure out which way forward you want to take, right? I try so hard not to say this is the right way, but I will often say this is the wrong way, right? And when we only have one player character in the party, when it's a solo campaign, that's really necessary. Normally we rely on Dave or Casey or Charlie to say this is a bad idea, but when we don't have that opportunity with Miaca's table, then someone's got to say this is a bad idea. And that's a great point for DMPCs in general. We're all very, very used to the dungeon master saying, are you sure you want to do that? At which point the players say, oh, red flag, holy shit, back it off, hit the brakes. We have fucked up in a big way. No. But if you use a DMPC in game to say, are you sure you want to do it that way? Sometimes the players will still say yes. And it's a bit of a softer nudge than the meta commentary, right? So, Megan, do you have a technique that another DM has used for
Yeah.
an NPC?
I would say so. And I think that, Adam, you've done this before, and Cole is doing this in our current campaign that we're running in, that I'm going to adopt for if I ever do this again, or the next time I run a game for you guys, is the concept of that the role-playing aspects of the character still belong to the DM, but when you're in battle, to make it a little bit more exciting, if you have DMPCs, hand that cue card over to your player and let them do that turn or do that round with that character, because it makes battle less slow and sloggy waiting for the DM to roll for 4 or 2 or 3 DMPCs at the table. Like, put that ownership on the player character, like your PCs at the table. So in our survivalist campaign with Cole, each of us got one of the hunters that we get to carry around with us, so that when we're in battle, we get to utilize their abilities. But out of battle, it still belongs to the choices are still the DMs. So, and Adam, you've done this before with the smaller NPCs with cue cards, mostly because you're like, I don't want to have to track 4 NPCs, so you guys do it. But it also makes battle, again, a little bit more exciting and a little bit more involved, because you're not just sitting there watching a DM roll dice. Yeah,
if you've got a DMPC at the table and you only have 2 players, let's say for Scott, then you realize that if you didn't have the DMPC, they would have 100% of the spotlight. If you do have an NPC, they're only going to have 66% of the spotlight between the 2 players. So you're really cutting that down. So what I like to do is make it so that the players run them in combat, so that they're still active 100% of the time in combat, because both Pathfinder and D&D are combat simulators. That's what they're about. That's like what you said earlier, Scott, about like being there for the teehees is all well and good. Dear Miaca, being a princess is fine. You have to fucking fight sometimes. Sometimes you have to go into the haunted.
I do fight.
We already decided she's not that girl, okay?
She's allowed.
Thank you. I do fight. I do fight sometimes, but other times I just run.
The only thing you fight is me. Do I have to go up those stairs? You realize that you're not actually walking, right? This was, I'm not joking, this was a 10-minute argument at the table one night where Miaca just did not want to walk up the stairs because she just came down the stairs. Like, you're sitting at that kitchen table right now, don't you? So, like, man, the point is, the point is, sometimes, yes, having the focus for the DMPC on combat and handing that to the players is a great way to keep them involved, while you still, as a DM, run the decisions and whether or not they're going to choose to get involved. The players can decide how they're going to attack, or if they're going to give a potion or whatnot. But the idea of running towards or away from danger, or even being a part of initiative, or how they're going to react in role-playing social situations, this is all in the DM still, so that you can guide and honor this character appropriately, while the players have more agency than the normal DMPC.
Wow, way to describe everything that I'm not doing with my DMPC.
You're welcome.
We hit role playing and stuff, and he just sits there silently with his giant great axe strapped to his back. But then when it comes to combat, they're not gonna learn everything. That Pathfinder gives you too many options. They're not gonna learn what my character can do on top of their characters.
That's fair. And I will say this, as we're swapping into a new edition of Dungeons and Dragons, they're saying it's not a new edition, but it's a new edition. As we're moving into this post 5th edition world, I have decided to pull back the moment we start dealing with those new rules, because they're a little bit more engaged, a little bit more in depth, but more importantly, we'll have to unlearn other rules. This is not a time for me to introduce a DMPC. This will just be confusing for, like, I have to have complete control over them. Giving them to the players, which would be overwhelming, right? Because we're still learning. It has taken a long time for me to hand those cue cards over to people and say, okay, you run it. Or I fleshed out sidekick character sheets as well and said, here you go, you run it. But only when they've got the experience, or they're managing a low-level character that is very simple to manage, right?
So essentially, it's don't do this to your new players and keep it simple.
Yeah, absolutely. So understanding their capabilities was something that actually Charlie taught me, because I kept handing out these cue cards, and he finally took me aside after one of the sessions and said, I can't manage my character and all of my spells and all of the things I want to do and navigate the battle grid and manage the NPCs appropriately. Please stop giving them to me. So I did, and everybody's happy. Somebody else gets to be even more involved as they take over, whatever DMPC that I've been running in the short period of time. So, Scott, when it comes to party size, in your opinion, how big is too big for a DMPC to be added?
So I guess it really comes down to what kind of DMPC you're doing.
Yes.
If you're doing I have the full stat block, I'm controlling them, like this is my character, even though I am the DM and they will not be touching this character, you need to have a small group size. I'm saying 4 players, maybe. If you hit 5 players in your party, no, you don't need just as strong as the DM. Like, you don't need a full PC strength character to run around with 5 other player characters. If they're missing something, they had 5 options, that's on them. But if you want to do more like the sidekicks, the little cards for, these are NPCs that happen to be in the vicinity, sure. No, you don't need to have a limit on how many PCs you have, but if you want to do your full, I am a strong PC in this party, keep it at a small table size.
Yeah. Miaca, what do you think?
I agree with Scott. I think, and I also think it depends on like the game. Like I had a great time when in that first campaign we ran, Adam, where it was like just a caravan of NPCs and like DMPCs, and we were like going across country, and that was like a lot of fun. But I think it just depends on what is happening in game. That makes sense.
Yeah, you'll also notice in that campaign that when you guys finally found a home and you got to the final town, and you all settled down and got your houses and you started to run the orphanage and stuff, all those NPCs became background noise, and the DMPCs became NPCs, and it all calmed right down. There's so much going on around you that my level of involvement really took a step back so that you could have more agency, because that's what the story required at the time, right? So even with only one player, when we became invested in the more social aspect of the game, and there was very little combat, we would go sessions without rolling initiative. Then the DMPC was relegated to NPC status. They, lived across the street. And if you need them, go to them. You don't need them now. You're navigating the courts and the nobility and trying to run a business, and there was no purpose for a DMPC. Megan, when it comes to hold on, before that, you forgot another love that you lost as well in Irvindale.
Yeah, we all lost Irvindale though that day. The well-loved NPC by all.
Yep.
I was like, I knew there was one more, but that's fine.
When it comes to party size, in your opinion, how big is too big for a DMPC?
Anything above 4, I think, is way. If I'm looking at MMO rules in terms of how a party dynamic works, 4 is light party. Anything above that becomes a heavy party. So if you don't really need to bolster past a light party if you're just doing a basic campaign. But again, it also depends on what kind of campaign you're playing as to what they're saying. So like if you are playing a romance campaign where you want to have a partner that walks around with you, you could still just regular NPC that. You don't have to do a full like DMPC for that one. You can just have them in the background and have them there. But I would never go above double how many players you have. So if you have 4 players, you should never have more than 4 NPCs that are with them at the same time. I just find that that's going to be way too over manageable. But for DMPCs, 4 and below is when they're absolutely needed. Anything above that can be NPC'd. But yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's worth pointing out that you should find whatever monster manual or bestiary that you're working off of, and there will be a part in the first section that says this is what your challenge rating for the monsters means, and it will tell you how many player characters it's supposed to be up against, right? So for the Dungeons and Dragons 5th edition, it's designed to be to match the level of a party of 4 player characters at this level. And if you go above, like you're more powerful than that, then it becomes a deadly encounter, right? So the idea is that a CR4 creature means that it should not be a deadly encounter for 4 4th level party members, which means if I've got 3 players, a CR4 creature is probably deadly. So I need to look at the encounters that I'm running And sometimes when I give you guys big, scary things to fight, like a false Hydra, I make sure that there are a bunch of NPCs and DMPCs and stuff around so that you can fight at the appropriate CR level. But like I say, those characters are supposed to come and go, right? They're not supposed to be a main feature. So, yeah, it depends on not just the party size itself. You guys said it's what you're trying to accomplish, and I think that I look mechanically when it comes down to combat. I look at the CR and how imbalanced is this, or how bad is the action economy? Are the enemies getting? If they're just as strong, the hits that they're making are just as strong, but they're making twice as many as you guys are, it's time for a DMPC to be there to at least pull focus from the attacks. And that's another good thing that I use my DMPC for, is they will tend to just distract the enemy and take a bunch of hits for a while. How many times, Megan, at the table, somebody said, how many hit points does our sidekick have? Because I know we got hit a bunch. Do we need to heal him?
Yep.
Right. Whereas there will also be someone at the table that's like a player. It's like, I didn't get hit at all in that encounter. Right. That was by design.
Yeah.
That was very much by design. The DMPC needs to obfuscate the focus of the enemy as well, right? Just by pulling focus onto another target, your player character is going to live longer.
Yeah.
See, and my players get mad at me when I do that. My barbarian has 111 hit points, so when I'm like, well, let's start churning through that, they accuse me of trying to kill my character.
Well, yes, but I mean, I tend to make sure that my party knows that everybody is a target on the battlefield, right?
Yeah.
And the way around that, Scott, is to use more area of effect spells that also catches them.
Oh, they got mad when I fireballed them too.
Okay, well that's a them problem. That's not a you problem.
That is fair. They're here for the tee-hees. Being fireballed is not very tee-hee.
That's fair.
Unless you're into that, we don't kink shame.
Oh, well, that's fair.
Do we have any final thoughts or anything on DMPCs before we wrap up? Scott, anything you'd like to say or any questions you have?
I mean, just be intentional with what you're doing with them. Like, part of the reason why I did it is because as the forever DM, I like to think of 80 billion different player characters that I'd love to play, and I never get to. But just be intentional on the party that they're going to balance in. And I really like your idea of okay, well, now they're just an NPC. Well, now they've faded in the background. Just have a plan, not just I want to be a player too and build a super strong character.
Yeah. Miaca?
Yeah, I agree. Like, this isn't your time to be a DM and like be a player too, even though it's DM called a DMPC. I think just remember that you're the DM and you're like building this world for your players, and just remember your role.
And I mean, I get it. Feels bad, man, being stuck in the DM literally forever. I didn't get to be a player for like 2 years straight, and I wanted to.
Yeah, no. And I was going to go more the route of like finding that balance of, because we ran into this when playing L5R, is that we tended to fall in love with the DMPCs or the NPCs that we were playing around with. So like we would actually role play with them and the DM more than role play with each other at the table. And so I found that when we did our L5R campaign and when I ran my last couple of D&D campaigns, if I had an NPC or DMPC, I made them interesting enough, but like I want my players to interact at the table and have conversations with each other and make conversations and make choices together. So that's another thing just to keep in mind, to try and balance that. If you're finding your DMPCs are pulling focus for role play, that might be a sign that you need to pull something from a backstory or make something happen where characters, like player characters, have a reason to actually interact with each other and properly have role play at the table. Because as much as I as a DM want to role play with every player at the table, that can sometimes be too much for us. And I think that it takes away from the experience of being able to play and role play with each other at the table. So just keep that balance in mind.
Yeah.
Sorry,
go ahead, Scott.
I had a moment of thought where I'm like, oh no, do I do most of the role playing with my players and they don't role play with each other? Girl, they're twins.
Yeah.
Like, I don't need them to get along with each other. They'll never get along with me the way they get along with each other.
That's fair.
Yeah, they're actually role playing psychically and you just don't see it. That's what's happening.
Do not understate that. Like, there is an extent to that is uncanny.
Love it.
I guess my favorite thing to wrap up is that an NPC should be used for world building to continue to expand the story and the setting that you're in, so that your players are going to be able to interact with the world in a more fulfilling way. They shouldn't be used to push the plot forward or be the main center of the conflict. Tobolt is a great example of dealing with Megan's character's personal history, but it did not push the overarching plot of the entire campaign forward by including him. Sakoth / Kayam was a phenomenal sidekick and partner to Miaca's character, and Steubens was the same way, but they never drove the plot. They were introductions to the world and an additional way to think about having the decisions made in certain ways or specific ways instead of making poor decisions, right? Now, the best way that I can think of to help use a DMPC to world build without taking any agency is by giving them fucking something to do. Give them shit to do that is not needed for the party so that they have the opportunity to be busy during downtime. They have the opportunity to be distracted or to... I often use my DMPCs to guard NPCs who are weaker, right? So that they are not a part of this combat. Everybody runs forward to fight off the orcs. This guy hangs back to defend the chickens that we're transporting, whatever it is, right? So this is the way that we should be thinking about them. Give them something to do besides being in the spotlight and being there for the, alpha plot line that you're dealing with. A DMPC should be there for balance and should be there for some social opportunities, but they should not be there to be the main focus of the campaign. So
yeah, if you're building your DMPC for your campaign and they're the big chosen one, take a second to look in the mirror and decide if you want to play D&D or write a book.
Yeah, and there's no harm in removing your ego a little bit from the moment and saying, hey, I want someone else to DM because I want to play this character, right? And there's no, and like a lot of people, see, I do this. I will build a character and I get to play them for a one shot because that's about the extent that anyone's willing to fucking DM. So I will play them for a one shot or a two shot or something, and then I never get to play them again. There's nothing stopping me from just building a character sheet at level 15 and using them in another one shot later. And then we're doing a level 3 one shot. Okay, I'll just downgrade them to level 3 and play them. I will get the opportunity to play my character eventually over time. I don't need to inject them into my storyline. And it's okay to ask others to DM, right? You've got to either give up the My Precious character or the My Precious story, because being a dungeon master is the same thing as being a referee. It's not about you, right? And I guess that should be what this episode is called.
It's not about you, but you're still playing the game, so please still have fun.
Yes. And also, Miaca, of course, it's always about you, and I'm very sorry I ever implied otherwise.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Well, it's funny. You said, oh, the DMPC runs back to help the weaker character. And my first thought was the princess who didn't even want to be in this fight.
Constantly, yes.
Did everything I could to avoid what's happening. So,
Scott, do you have any personal social media or projects or anything that you'd like to shout out or mention?
I don't like social media. It's so funny. I don't like social media yet. Again, my name and voice is out on the internet in a podcast. My boyfriend makes fun of me for that. No, I don't have anything going on other than slowly crafting my next homebrew campaign for when my level 1 to 20 campaign's done. That's all I got.
How long do you figure until that happens?
Well, we play every other week, and it's going to get a big interruption when Andy's decided that when it hits October and it's fall, that he wants to start running Call of Cthulhu for us. So I'm looking at least 1.5 to 2 years out before I get to start my next homebrew campaign.
That is almost enough time to listen to every episode of It's a Mimic again from the beginning.
Yeah.
Almost.
It depends. Do you want to do anything else with your time? If the answer is no, then yes, you should be good.
Hold on, fuck. Are there other options besides this podcast? Are there other things I can do?
No, Adam, stop it.
Yes, I originally wanted this episode to be a Baldur's Gate 3 episode, but someone has the game and hasn't played it. Cough, cough, Adam.
I've never played it either.
Okay, well, if you want to nerd out about Baldur's Gate, play it, and then we'll do an episode on it.
We will holster that idea for now, because we've got, I think, 5, maybe 6 people on the podcast that have played it, and so I might try to wrangle them in as well. My plan is to be down in Maryland for a number of months. Sean is going to give me a Steam Deck to be able to actually play this and stay connected to at least Sean, Dan, and Dave. Although Brad and Tyler have both mentioned that they may want to get in on that. So hopefully I will have the time after the wedding, because God knows there won't be time before that. And that, of course, is going to be dependent on whether or not Miaca lets me out of my box. So
It's a
Very true.
4-player game. She can play too.
but you won't.
I just might though. Sounds
Oh.
fun.
Don't you fucking tease me with a good time.
It's a lot of fun,
Okay.
would recommend. Although my COVID lockdown game was Divinity Original Sin 2, which was Larian Studios' previous game. I've played probably 500 hours of that game. There's nothing else to do in COVID, okay? Don't judge me. I
What
played a
is
lot of
it?
that game.
Animal Crossing.
No, I didn't play Animal Crossing. I played Divinity.
Different.
Animal Crossing is how Megan dragged Casey through COVID.
It's how we saved each other's lives. Yeah.
You brought Animal Crossing, she brought the wine. I heard the stories.
You know it.
All right. So that's all for our discussion on DMPCs. Thank you, Scott, for choosing this topic, creating this with us, and supporting the Patreon. Is there anyone you'd like to throw a shout out to? And I think you already said no, right?
I always shout out Joe and Andy. They are absolutely fantastic. They play because I said, let's play, and I want to do this. And they were good sports, and they're here for the tee-hees, and we have a good time. I'd also like to thank the two of you for agreeing to come and hang out with me. I've had a blast, and I hope you have as well.
Yeah, same. Great discussion.
No, it's been a great time. All right. Thank you for listening to another episode with the It's a Mimic podcast. If you'd like to support us, we have a donate button on our website, itsamimic.com, a store with some merch, and a Patreon.
This episode and others can also be found on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, and most other podcast apps. Thanks again for listening to It's a Mimic, where you never know what you're going to get. I have a question, Scott. How
Okay, I
much?
have an answer.
How much do your roommates slash players love you talking about them to absolute strangers on the internet?
They honestly and truly don't really care, as long as I'm not egregiously slandering them.
Fair enough.
Mm-hmm.
I slander my partners constantly.
So does Miaca. Yeah.
I haven't
No.
even gotten started.
Oh geez, no, they don't mind, especially when they have, just like I do, generic white guy names, Joe and Andy.
Yeah, okay, that's fair enough. So this episode's probably not going to come out until December or January, somewhere around there. We're just getting a big lead because I got to get the editing done, because I'm not going to be editing while I'm in Maryland. So
Well, is this episode going to come out on a Friday?
they usually come out on Fridays.
Okay, Friday, December 27th is my birthday.
Making a note.
Oh, yeah.
I'll be 28 and old.
Don't even get me started. I'm starting to get pissed off about this now.
I always make fun of Roman for being 3 years younger than I am, but now I can't make fun of him anymore. Feel so old.
I
Is
mean, you
Katie-
can make
is
fun of
Katie
me
younger?
for being young.
Katie is so Roman's 3 years younger than I am. Katie's 2 years younger than I am.
Okay. Yeah, he looks like the baby. Yeah.
Roman? Yes,
Yeah.
he is the baby of the family. Yeah. The wee beeb.
Well, happy birthday, Scott. By the time that you hear this.
Thank you. It is my birthday tradition, since at work I get Christmas Eve and Christmas Day as paid holidays, and then my birthday is a paid holiday. I use like 2 days of PTO to take the whole week off. So my birthday tradition is brunch and mimosas. So I will probably already be a mimosa or two deep by the time this episode drops.
I love that. My birthday's on December 30th, so I understand.
Yeah.
The holiday week, how everyone forgets and no
Now,
one
my
cares.
mom is fantastic and made sure that they were two very separate days. Christmas gifts were in
Same.
Christmas wrapping paper. Birthday gifts were on my birthday in birthday wrapping paper. They were very separate days.
When
Mhm.
Miaca
There you go.
when Miaca and I first started talking, and I'm like, so when's your birthday? It's just one of those things that you ask people. She said, it's December 30th. And I'm going to tell you right now, and like we were talking in February, right? And she's like, and I want to tell you right now that when my birthday comes around, and it's also Christmas, you are not allowed to ever combine the gifts. That is just not okay with me. But all right, fucking noted. I had a grandmother whose birthday was on New Year's Day. I have an uncle. He's actually coming to the wedding, Miaca, whose birthday is on Christmas. So my family's pretty good at separating shit out, right? My brother's birthday often falls on Father's Day. All right. Like there tends to be separations. Megan, do you ever have it on Canadian Thanksgiving?
My birthday?
Yeah. Does that ever line up?
No, it's too late. Yeah, I'm October 18th. So it's like slightly just too far. So because like ours usually falls like the first week of October or the second week of October, and I'm always just on the other cusp. However, my family always does Thanksgiving and my birthday together because nobody likes getting together 2 weeks in a row. So
you have canceled D&D 9 weeks in a row because you're doing family stuff.
My family's crazy. Weekend. I know. My family's a little insane that we do that. So I also have 2 partners who also have families. So you know what? Responsibility. I have responsibilities. Okay.
Look, girl, I can't even juggle one with family half the time. I don't know how you can do a couple.
It takes a special person, and it takes a lot of canceled D&D sessions, unfortunately.
That's fair. Okay, so I had to look it up. So obviously I know Miaca is also a Capricorn, because hello, that's me. That put you, Megan, in a Scorpio, right?
No, sir. I'm a Libra.
You're a Libra.
Scorpio comes after me. They're end of October.
Yes, sorry, I thought you said November, and that was not it. I was Googling it, but you had already said it before I started Googling.
Yeah, we threw you off by saying Thanksgiving until you went to November.
You threw me off. Yeah. Because I guess we have different Thanksgivings.
Ours is October. Fuck. Yeah.
Miaca, how do you deal with this?
I'll tell you, she loves it because our wedding is sandwiched. The day before is my mom's birthday. The day of the wedding is Casey's birthday, and the day after is Thanksgiving. So, and we have made all of the Canadians travel down there to celebrate Canadian Thanksgiving by going to our wedding. So
okay. And then you'll never forget when Canadian Thanksgiving is because it's your anniversary.
Yeah. It will always line up on that day. Weekend probably.
Yeah, telling my mom I'm not here for Thanksgiving. That was a hoot.
So fortunately, Joe's family hates Thanksgiving, so we go to my family for Thanksgiving because my mom says I want you for either Thanksgiving or Christmas, one of the two. So since his family hates Thanksgiving, we go to my family for Thanksgiving, and then hell hath no fury if I take Joe away from his mom on Christmas. So it works.
How do you hate Thanksgiving? Unless, I mean, you're, indigenous, but like.
Well, okay. No, it's family is why they hate Thanksgiving.
Oh, yeah. Okay. That's also a great reason.
When you don't want to be around that much family for that amount of time, just to eat food and talk, that'll do it.
Mm-hmm.
I'm starting to leg out a little bit on my side here, so I think I'm going to save this episode. Thanks again, Scott. Thanks, ladies,
of course, yes.
For jumping in on this.
It was nice to meet you and see your face.
Yeah, it was nice to meet you too. Of course, my little gay boy ass is like, when am I going to meet all the girlies?
Hey man, anytime.
For the record, if Peps didn't have a previous engagement, she would have jumped on this as well. She's disappointed.
Hell yeah.
So,
well, and I had to meet with Dave first because Eberron was the series that got me hooked on the podcast. So
I guess that's fair.
I had to start with the OG. I mean, if it was anyone other than Dave, I mean,
and that guy's a nightmare at the best of times.
He does okay.
And he was on his best behavior when he met me. So
we had a stern talking to with him before we ever hit record. I want you to know that. Like, Dave, you need to comb your beard. Get all the twigs and leaves out of it. It's
an audio format.
So this is just because it drives him nuts. It just so I can annoy him. That's my purpose. So anyways, I'm going to save this. Thanks so much, everybody. I'm waiting.
We'll catch you all on Discord.
Bye, guys.
Bye-bye. I have to leave twice.
Hello.
Hello.
Hi.
So,
It's so exciting. I just get to meet more and more people.
you've met more than any of the others have at this point. They have not even asked to get anybody else in. I guess Robert did an episode with Terry and I. And I guess Robert and Miaca, you guys, I mean, we all had drinks, right? We had dinner. Anyway.
Yeah, I met Rob. Yep.
Okay. So what is this?
This is all I had in my house right now.
Is that Kraken?
It's a tiny bottle of Kraken.
Why do I know that just from the shape of the bottle?
Un petit peu.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, cheers. Let's get this show started.
I feel like I'm getting drunk on an airplane right now.
Is there any other way to fly?
I'm usually drunk before I get on the airplane. Like, I love myself an airport bar.
You know, there's nothing more satisfying than expensive Vancouver airport breakfast. You know, I don't know what it is about how that shitty food just makes my life feel alive.
Oh, you say that, but for the bachelor party, when Sean and Dave and I went down to Vegas, our plan was to get breakfast at the airport, and it was fine. It was greasy and whatever. Then we got on a plane, and Dave is so nervous about flying. And so he was all just tense and full of anxiety. And then the flight was perfectly fine until the last 15 minutes, where we suddenly dropped like 20 feet all in one go when we hit turbulence. And that greasy breakfast flipped in his stomach, and he was done for the rest of the day. We pulled into Vegas at like 11 in the morning, and we got to the hotel, and I think he slept for 6 hours. He just like checked in and gave up. His stomach was done. So like, and that was the Canucks bar that's in the airport, which is like low key my favorite place to get drunk if I'm there at 6 p.m. and it's just too many fucking people first thing in the morning.
You're not wrong. My stomach did absolute knots this morning. I went to go see The Crow last night, by the way.
I'm sorry.
But, I ate a whole large popcorn to myself, and then my body this morning was like, this was an error that you have done. And so I woke up this morning not hungover, like just like popcorn hungover, which I've never had in my life.
You know, I find it's the absolute worst if I put butter on it. It's okay if I say no to butter.
I gotta have it layered though. Like I just gotta layer that shit.
So this is what I have to look forward to getting older.
Yeah, yes.
How old are you?
Great, 27. So I'm starting to get there.
You're a baby.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, just wait till you talk
wish
to
I was
Andre. He's
27.
what, 22?
Oh my god.
What?
That's hilarious.
Jesus.
Katie and I went on a date the other night, and I got ID'd and she didn't. And it was the best moment of my life.
Every time that I go through a liquor store and they ask for my ID, I always reach out and touch her hand and say, bless you. And then
I know. I always get every time they look, because immediately they see I'm born in the 80s, and they're like, oh. But thank you.
The reaction I get from people now when they ask for my ID, they look at it and they go, oh God, at least it's the 90s.
Right? Like, as soon as I see like a 2000s ID, I'm like, what are you talking about? The 2001 was 5 years ago. I don't know.
No, people born 2003 can drink now.
Oh, no. It's 2007. No.
Okay, sorry. It's
2005, I guess.
Sorry,
No.
I'm here in the States where it's 21, not 18.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Our country believes that as soon as you're an adult, you can do all of the things, not just cherry pick what you can and can't do.
I don't disagree. If you can enlist in the military, you should have a beer with your dinner.
Correct.
I'm depressed now that people born after Batman Begins can drink.
What a great series. Like, can we just take a moment and appreciate? Like,
yes, it was absolutely wonderful. I love it intensely. Not my favorite Batman, but one of for sure.
Fair.
Anyways, we should probably get this ball rolling.
Probably. I have to go at 2.
Oh, all
I
right.
gave us 3 hours though, so I figured that'd be enough time.
It hopefully. I mean, it does just turn into story time after about half an hour. So,
Megan, did you dye your hair?
Yeah, I did. I refreshed it.
Oh, okay. I'm
Ooh.
like, there's something. So like something has happened.
Yeah. No, I refreshed it.
Nice.
It's very. I'm in my rogue phase, so it's very
Mm,
very rogue-esque today.
yeah, it is. It is.
I'm very happy with it. I did it specifically like right before we have to travel for the wedding, so I have a little bit of root coming in, and it gives it that nice look. Like I timed it
Mhm.
for y'all. So
Yeah. Thank
Anyway,
you.
you're
I
welcome.
appreciate it.
I should do the same thing with my beard.
No.
When I was at the salon, there was a guy dyeing his beard pink, and I was like,
Oh yeah.
yeah. Because here in New West, we have a hair salon called Bombshell, and they're basically like they're very LGBTQ legitimate like positive. Everybody that works there is like it's one of the most comfortable places you could ever go to get your hair done in a very strange and fucked up way. And I'm like, they know their audience. You know what I mean? So anyways, let's start
Love it.
this. I'll stop with tangents now.
I fucking doubt it, but yeah, let's get going.